Hey guys, Jasmine here. So today I want to talk about how to overcome a limiting belief. If you follow people out there like Tony Robbins, he's my favorite. He talks about limiting beliefs that we may have that kind of stop us from doing the things that we want to do that are kind of like kinks in maybe our identity, so to speak. And essentially what they are is the stories that we tend to tell ourselves again and again and that play on loop. A lot of them we might be aware of, but a lot of the time we probably aren't aware of them. And those stories that we tell ourselves tend to be, for better or for worse, the self images that we have. So if we have a lot of negative stories that we tell ourselves, like, oh, you're not good enough, people don't like you, you're a failure, that's going to reflect negatively on your self image and bring it down. And then you feel worse about yourself. Your confidence goes down, your quality of living goes down. So, how do you change that limiting belief? Well, I know that there are so many books out there that talk about that, but for me, being an ordinary 20 some who used to be super messed up, just was an internal mess, I was reading all these books and nothing really worked, or like the things that worked, like yes they worked, but it took a lot of work, it took a lot of consistency, put like time and energy putting this in, and it sometimes moved the needle but sometimes it didn't. Well, I found that there was this one thing that if you did it consistently, it really was a game changer. It really, changed your beliefs pretty darn fast. Yes, it's going to take work, but it really, again, was a game changer in my life. Of all places, I learned this through overcoming an eating disorder. So for me, I had an eating disorder that had developed out of my childhood. Really, it was because I was the step kid within my family. I didn't really feel loved. So by the time I got to college, I started developing binge eating disorder, and many years passed, and I got to a point in my life where I started to, become confident. I found personal freedom. I started to love life, love who I was becoming, and yet I was still having these urges, and I was like, why aren't these urges going away? Like by now they should be going away, but it was because of the stories that I kept telling in my head and the same loops that are going on in my head. And I was like, okay, how do I change this? And I learned that it really boiled down to doing one thing. Like if you do this again consistently, it changed everything, and that is stop emotionally reacting to the thoughts in your head. And that sounds so simple and sounds so stupid, but if you really stop to think about it, like, this is huge. And I realized, like, a light bulb went on in my head not too long ago when I realized that this could be applied to all areas of your life. And for me, it could be applied to, say, confidence and self-image. Not, for you, a lot of you guys know that one of the biggest things that I had overcome not too long ago was having an anxiety disorder and having low confidence. Well, there are still times when voices still pop back in my head that say, hey, Jasmine, you're really awkward, you suck. So, an example of the story. So not too long ago, I was at work and I had a really awkward conversation with a coworker on the phone, just part of being a human being. Sometimes, you're going to be awkward, you're going to have awkward moments. Well, I just said something really stupid and I hung up and I was like, "Wow, Jasmine, like what the hell? Like what was that?" And in my head, that voice came back of, "Jasmine, you're really awkward." And a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that would have destroyed me. Like I remember 2, 3 years ago, I'd be on the phone all the time and I might say something that was really awkward. And as soon as I hung up, I'd be like, oh, I'm so awkward. And it would just like emotionally destroy me. And I was giving it so much emotional energy that that thought would come back like literally 30 seconds later. And as soon as it came back, I'd be like, oh, I'm so awkward. And then it would just like get progressively worse throughout the day. And, I would be driving home and it would just keep coming back. And then, I would stop thinking about it. But then by the time I parked and I would go for a walk, just come back and I'm like, oh, I'm so awkward. And I just would beat myself up and anxiety would just shoot straight up. And that's why my anxiety was getting, progressively worse and worse as the years passed. But what I realized with this one trick, and what I didn't really think about, when I overcame anxiety, this is kind of what I was doing without me realizing, was I stopped emotionally reacting. So when this voice came back into my head after I had this awkward conversation on the phone, for a second, the familiar pains came back of, oh my gosh, I'm so awkward, and like the shame and the embarrassment were just waiting to flood my body. But then I was like, nope, nope, not going there, not going there. So I just didn't give it any attention, and then like it went away. And then a couple hours later, I went on a walk, and then like the thought came back, Jasmine, you're really awkward. And I was about to be like, oh no, but then I was like, nope, nope, not going there, not going there. And what was crazy was that, like, yes, it would have been really easy for me just give it emotional charge. And like, there are a couple times when I did do that, like even now, I was giving it emotional charge. And but like I started to stop doing that, and I started to like become really aware of the self-talk in my head. And what was crazy, guys, was the less emotion I gave it, the more it would just kind of like start coming into my head less and less. And when it did, I just was like, oh, there it is again. I'm not gonna, care about it, and just kind of let it float by. So, and then, so what I'm trying to get to, you guys, is every time you have a thought in your head, whatever it is, let's just take especially negative thoughts. If you have a negative thought in your head and you give it emotional charge, you're actually wiring your brain to believe that and to make that more of a core of your identity. And that's why, the same thoughts, the same negative thoughts that you have in your head tend to keep coming back and back, is because you're giving it so much emotional energy and you're fueling it with emotional charge. Well, what you need to do is you need to stop that, and just when that thought comes back, number one, be aware of it, but number two, stop emotionally reacting. Just treat it like just like another thought of junk that you might have, like, oh, I need to take out the garbage. Like, you don't like emotionally like react, I hope, when you have that like with charge. Just be like, oh, I need to take out the garbage, okay, whatever. Just when that thought comes, whatever it is you have in your head that's coming back to you again and again, like, oh, you just like are a sucky person, nobody likes you, just be like, okay, just let it pass. Just don't emotionally react. And that was like a really big game changer for me. And honestly, like in addition to that, when that thought would come up, I would also reverse it and give really good positive emotional charge to the positive opposite, which is I'm imperfect and I embrace my imperfections. And that, plus just not emotionally reacting to the negative thoughts, what was crazy is, again, like it just started to go away and it stopped coming back as much. And then now it's like my brain has been rewired. Like, you are rewiring your brain when you don't give emotional energy to things and when you give emotional energy to other things. So I really hope this helped, guys. Like, please take the time to just let this sink in and replay the video if you need to. But again, like, coming from somebody who used to deal with 23 years of really, really bad anxiety disorder and an eating disorder, I can tell you that this really works, and just stay consistent with it. And I'm excited to hear your results. And definitely don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'm always here to help, and I love you guys, and talk to you guys soon.